Hello, hi, how are you? It's been a minute. I can't believe it's been this long. But I thought it was time to talk again. So many of you have reached out, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. You learn so much from the podcast, and really missed it, and I appreciate that. I missed it too. I gave it a go, and I kind of felt like something was missing, and love having this media to kind of share things with you and ideas and talk about things that are going on. And there is so much going on. My goodness, this podcast could probably go on for a very, very long time. So many topics to talk about, and that's great because we'll have things to talk about in the future. But I thought I'd catch up with you, talk a little bit about Western States. I had a lot of questions, of course, after my my DNF there. So thought I'd get back into it and talk to you about things. I'm going to do a new release date, so you can expect podcasts on Friday. I'm not sure if I'll do every week, but I will certainly go for every other week at least. Every week gets tough sometimes. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes and see how time affords me the opportunity to record these. But I just wanted to say, I want to make this meaningful. So I appreciate all of your contributions. So if there is something that you want to hear about, or someone you want to hear from, a topic you want me to discuss, or questions that you have, I encourage you to please reach out to me. All of the ways to connect with me are going to be in the show notes. You can certainly connect with me through my website if you're interested in coaching. I do have a few spots available, and that's runningislife.run. And so you can kind of let me know. Okay, so please do reach out. With that said, I want this podcast to remain sponsor-free. I certainly appreciate all my Patreons of the past. I shut Patreon down when I wrapped up the podcast a few months ago, and I'm going to leave it shut down. It's not that I don't want the support. I really do appreciate everybody and everything. I just want this to be something I want to do and not incentivized by anything, be it sponsorships or Patreon dollars. I really just want to, give back and kind of put things out there, get you thinking about your training, about your running, about life, and really just talk to you guys and be real with you. And that's all I can do, is be honest and open, as I am today, and talking about Western States. So, again, I appreciate everybody. If you have questions, comments, that's what really keeps me going. So please keep those coming. Share the podcast if you find it helpful. Really, that's all I could ask. Okay. So let's kind of dive in, because like I said, it's been a minute and I didn't get a chance to talk much when I wrapped up about Western States and everything that was going on. Western States training, it couldn't have gone better. Honestly, I was being coached by Ryan Anderson, and he did a fantastic job. I can't deny that my training went according to plan. I had no problems, no injuries. Everything felt great. Everything was trending the right direction. I worked with my dietitian, Kendra, and she was fantastic. We had a solid nutrition and hydration plan, and I practiced it almost religiously, almost on a daily basis. If I was running, an hour or more, I was practicing nutrition and hydration. So I know I practice my nutrition and hydration. So going forward, when we talk about, how things went sideways, understand that, we practice this. And I'm going to talk about specifically what I did. But understand that I did everything in my power to make this race go right. So we'll talk a little bit about training. We'll talk a little bit about nutrition, hydration, things that I did. I also worked with Marissa Romeo, who helped me on the mental side of things. I still had some hangups from the last time I did Western States, and I was trying to get over those, to overcome those, obstacles and barriers mentally. So I worked with her. I had a strength coach in Will France, and we were doing strength 2 to 3 times a week. So I was trying to cover all my bases. I put a lot of time and energy into this training block for Western States, and everything leading up to race day pointed towards I could do a sub 24 finish at Western States, and that's what I was going for, was a sub 24 hour finish. So going back, in training, I built up. I didn't do anything extremely long. My longest run was 28 miles. I don't feel endurance is really my issue. We were really working on getting more consistent with turnover and getting some speed back so that 14-minute miles, which is what you need for a 24-hour finish, would feel substantially easier. Getting my fitness up so that the altitude wouldn't, have as much of an adverse effect on my aerobic system. We took it from every angle. We did some heat training in the regards that, I overdressed. So I wore layers. If you were following on Strava, you would see that I did layer runs to try to, get my sweat, working faster and at a better rate. So we really did try to accomplish so many things in training. Did we try to accomplish too much? Again, I don't think so when we look back at it, because, Ryan and I kind of looked at everything, and like I said, training looked like everything was fine. I didn't feel overstressed. I didn't feel overtrained. Everything was pointing towards everything was good in that regard. So far as strength goes, we took the 2 weeks prior to Western States and just kind of took off from strength training. That was my taper away from strength training. So I had time to recover from anything that I had done. So, again, in that regard, everything was fine. So far as nutrition goes, the plan was I would take gels, and I was doing 90 grams of carbs per hour. What I did was I used cis beta fuel, which is 40 grams, and then I used a product called carb fuel, which is another gel, which is 50 grams, which gave me 90 grams an hour. Kind of probably about maybe a little over halfway through my training, maybe a little bit more, is when Tailwind came out with their their high carb. Or maybe it came out a little bit earlier than that, but that's when I started using it. And we decided to alternate. 1 hour I would do gels, the next hour I would do the high carb, the Tailwind high carb. And then we'd alternate back and forth each hour, gel, high carb, back and forth, to kind of give myself a break from the gels and from the Tailwind. And while I was taking the gels, I was drinking my electrolytes. I was using Huma, H-U-M-A, Huma, their electrolyte mix, which doesn't have any calories in it. It doesn't have any sugar. So I was just getting electrolytes from that. And then I was using handhelds as I wanted to try to stay cooler without a pack. On race day, I had trained with a pack as a just in case, and on race day to start, I needed 3 bottles, so I wore a very lightweight. It's the pack that Courtney Dauwalter uses. It's a Solomon something 6. I have to look that up, but you certainly can find Courtney's pack really easy. And I carried a bottle in there. I carried my my nutrition in there, and then I used the 2 handhelds while running. And so that's how I started. That was my nutrition plan, and that's what I did. That's what I was sticking to on race day. And I said, I practiced it almost religiously, trying to make sure that my body was used to it. I carried 2 bottles most of my runs. I wore the pack on some longer runs just to make sure it was comfortable. I had no problems with it. So I practiced with everything. I tried to make sure that everything I used, I was ready to use on race day. As far as footwear goes, I was starting in the Topo Mountain Racer 4. And yeah, we're going to do a whole nother podcast on footwear because, oh my goodness, I'll probably release a YouTube video with all the shoes that I've tried and the problems that I had, so that you can know ahead of time some of the problems that you may face by using some of these shoes. But for the Topo Mountain Racer 4, they have a new insole on it. It's I believe they're using a P-Bax, and they kind of glue it into the insole. But one of my long runs, I was doing multiple river crossings and filtering, so my feet were wet. And with the humidity here, the insole started to deteriorate. All those white kind of foam pellets, I started feeling something in my shoe, and I was like, what is that? So I took off my shoe and discovered that my insole had deteriorated from all the water and being wet. So I replaced the liner with a Topo Mountain Racer 3 liner so that I wouldn't have problems with the liner, and everything was fine with those. I was going to use those through the high country, and at I think at Robinson Flat, I was going to switch into the Speedlands, the Cocodona edition that they came out with. Really like that shoe. The only thing I can say about the Speedlands, and again, we'll get into a whole separate, episode about shoes, is that they have zero traction on wet stones. So, it's like that next section, I didn't really have much to worry about so far as being wet goes. So, that was the plan. So that's footwear. Most of my gear, I didn't wear arm sleeves. I just wore Kettle, Ketl, Kettle shirt, and Patagonia, their lightweight running trail shirt. I think it's the Ridge. Anyway, two very lightweight shirts is what I was switching back and forth through. Both had sun protection, but I was using sunscreen. Otherwise, I used the Outdoor Research bucket cap. They have a really great lightweight bucket cap that has a little adjustment on the back. It's even sized, small, medium, and large, extra large. And I really enjoy that hat. Good sun coverage, very lightweight, very breathable. I had coverage for my head, but I was still using sunscreen and a short sleeve shirt, and the new Hoka shorts, which were awesome. They had a boxer liner, very lightweight, lightest weight I think I've found in that liner, as well as the new Patagonia Strider Pro shorts. For socks, I was using the Injinji, their Ultra sock. I like the Crew. Here in the summer, I've switched back to the Exo-Toes, the Exoskin Exo-Toe socks, just because they're thinner, lighter weight, a little bit more breathable. Here in the middle of summer, here in western North Carolina, the humidity is so high that your feet just get so soaking wet. So anyway, but I use the Injinji Ultras to the Crew for western states. So there's my gear. That's what I had. That was my plan. Race morning, felt just fine, ready to go, nice and rested. We stayed right in Olympic Village at the Plump Jack. It was great. It was right next to the starting line. So not a lot of stress. Day before went smoothly. Just kind of took it easy. Wasn't on my feet much. Didn't have much stress. My drop bags were all ready, so we just went, dropped off my drop bags, picked up my packet, went to the race meeting, and then, just went to dinner and kind of hung out because it was, like I said, everything was done. So not stressed at all. Leading up to that was great. I mean, we were, we had a great time in Lake Tahoe, and again, I stayed off my feet. Didn't overdo it during that week. Got good sleep. I ate extremely well. If anything, I probably could have carb loaded better. That's one thing that my dietitian and I talked about afterwards, and something I have to do better going forward. I was eating a little too much fat, most likely, which could have caused some stomach distress. So I need to do a better job moving forward of carb loading prior. So, because for breakfast I had bacon and eggs, and I think I had a piece of toast, so not a lot of carbs for breakfast. Lunch, I had a bacon turkey avocado sandwich from Subway. So again, the bacon and avocado high in fat, and the bread was my carb. So, it's just little too fat focused. And dinner, we had dinner at the Plump Jack there, and they had a cream sauce. So again, a higher fat. It was so the cream sauce over the pasta. The pasta was good, but probably should have done more of like a tomato based. And I was drinking Gatorade Zero, so I really wasn't getting the carbs from my electrolytes either. So, few mistakes there. Admittingly, I didn't carb load as best as I could. So, note for the future, do better job. Sports drinks, you don't have to go zero, especially leading up to the race. You want those carbs. So, noted there. And then again, less fat leading into the race. So, trying to be conscious about that in my daily, nutrition choices as I build here towards the Tour de France, which I'll talk about here at the end. But, again, focusing on Western States. The morning of, I just had a bowl of dry cereal. We had Frosted Flakes, so had those and some coffee. Everything was fine. Like I said, going to the race, I felt comfortable, relaxed, got to see my friends at the start, which is great. I met Tyler Ford, who's one of my athletes. He had just finished Old Dominion and had come off the wait list just a few weeks prior to the start of Western States after Old Dominion. So I was excited for him. Saw Laura Rollins and Liz. Oh, man, it's just there were so many people. It was great. Love it. Got to see all the crew and pacers that were my friends as well. So it was so good to see everybody. And it just, like I said, everything felt good going into the race start. The race started. We started going up the escarpment. I was pretty hydrated, so I had to pull off and use the the restroom not too long into the start. But I stayed relaxed on the first climb, unlike 2 years ago where I felt like I was really kind of pushing that climb. This time I just felt relaxed, and I was enjoying it going up. I was turning around, looking at the view, watching the sunrise, taking the view of Lake Tahoe, just looking around and and enjoying the moment. I felt very present. And we got up to the ridge. I talked to a few runners. Everybody was pretty excited, which is cool. I love that kind of camaraderie where we're all excited for what lies ahead. And then, up on the ridge, it was much different than 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we had hit snow just starting up to the escarpment. This year, there was really no snow up there, which, again, was very different. And nice, to have that. So, I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the escarpment. I enjoyed running up in the high country. It was beautiful up there. Absolutely beautiful. Everything was going according to plan. Sorry for the dogs. They're playing. Hey, quiet, you two. So anyway, up in the high country, I didn't feel any problems. I felt smooth and relaxed. Found a nice runner to kind of settle into a pace with, and really enjoyed, that time up there. Really, honestly, much better than last time. My legs felt good. My body felt good. Really wasn't having any problems. I felt like I was just moving along smoothly. When we looked at the data afterwards, Ryan and I took a look. I really wasn't moving hard or pushing. I was on pace, but, not forcing it. And I felt great. And that's awesome. Like everything was going good. Until I think it was around mile maybe 15, or maybe just before. It was probably just before it was just before 15. I tripped and took a really big step and felt like I tweaked my hamstring. It wasn't something that I was overly concerned about, but I could definitely sense that I had really, overstretched it, we'll say. Maybe not strained it, maybe, but, at the same time, I could still move, I could still run, but it was there. So it was something in my mind that I was, monitoring, we'll say. When I got into 15, at the aid station there, I had a drop bag and I kind of switched things out, and got moving again. And as soon as I got out of the aid station, I think I took a swig of my Tailwind and I got nauseous and threw up. which I was like, oh no, like, not this early. Obviously it's way too early for that to start up. I hadn't had any problems in training. Again, 28-mile long run, no problems for my gut. And here I am 15 miles in, and I was throwing up. So a little bit, concerning. But my dietitian had told me, hey, listen, if your stomach goes sideways, come off the tailwind. Perhaps it was too much sodium mixed in with the carbohydrate for myself. So I stopped with the tailwind. I did have a bottle of water and my electrolytes. So I tried just sipping on the water, and my stomach wasn't ready for it. It just sloshed, and then I threw up again. So, I was like, ah. So with throwing up, I knew this was going to be tough. I knew this was going to be really challenging. But I thought we had a plan, just to kind of settle down, let the stomach settle, try to trickle in some calories, try to trickle in some hydration, get the stomach working again. And that was the plan. That's what I tried to execute. I got through. I saw my crew. I didn't want to alarm them with neither my hamstring or with my stomach, so I didn't say anything. I saw them at Duncan Canyon, and we just did a quick swap out for everything. I told them just put water in my bottle, and instead of Tailwind, and give me one Huma. So I had 2 bottles of water and 1 Huma, and my gels, of course. And again, didn't say anything. Really wasn't favoring the hamstring at that point, so it wasn't noticeable. They thought everything was good, and I tried to play it off that everything was fine, because I figured I could right this ship, and it was still early in the race, and I'd be fine. So I headed back out. I would see the Carmichael Training System, CTS, who Ryan's part of. I would see them at Robinson Flat. And so I was making my way to Robinson Flat when I started getting a really severe pain in my lower back. And much like David Roche said, I started getting in my head that something was wrong with my kidneys, that I was going to suffer rhabdo. But I figured I'd save that for the medics, because I have no clue. But my hamstring was really starting to bug me, and my stomach was still not doing well. Anytime I tried to drink, I threw up. I could actually get the cyst gel down, but I could only do like 1 per hour. So I was diminished down to like 40 grams, and I really wasn't doing much for hydration because it kept sloshing in my stomach. So, So anyway, I got to Robinson Flat, saw the CTS crew there, and, we tried to assess, went over to the medics, described what I was experiencing, and they said it's not rhabdo. You won't experience pain in having rhabdo, but could be like a kidney stone. Let's just, get you drinking and make sure you're cool enough. They tried to put cold stuff on me, but I was already starting to shiver, and it's hot, but I wasn't feeling the heat, to be honest. I said, I don't need anything cold on me. Actually, just let me switch out my shirt. So I switched into a dry shirt, and I switched out my shoes at that point, went into the Speedlands, and they had me drinking on some Coca-Cola. I think I drank 2 cans of Coca-Cola, and I was eating some goldfish that I had in my drop bag. I got quite a bit of the goldfish down and 2 cans of Coke, and my stomach was okay. So I was kind of optimistic that my stomach was going to turn around. So I stayed there for a little bit longer, just to kind of make sure everything was okay. We took care of everything we could, and the one coach was like, you need to eat all these gels before you see your crew, which would have been pretty tough given how my stomach was. And so I started up again. I got going, was able to run. I remember the last time 2 years ago when I raced, I was having a hard time even running downhill from Robinson Flat, and this time I was able to run just fine. They put an ice bandana on me. It was really cold. I don't even think I really needed it. I wasn't hot. It was hot out, but I wasn't feeling the heat at all. So I started heading down the road again. I was able to run, and it was in that section where my hamstring started to twinge and started to pull, like it wanted to cramp. So I tried to shorten my stride so that I wasn't, overstriding or putting as much extension, if you will, on my hamstring, and kind of compromising my form in that regard to try to compensate for what I was experiencing in the hamstring. So, I was trying to do as they instructed, and I tried to drink some water, and again, my stomach just started sloshing, so I backed off. I didn't throw up that time, but I could tell it was making me nauseous. I got into Miller's Defeat, just refilled my water bottles, and I had everything else. Looked at the table, trying to see if there's anything salty I could grab. Grabbed some potato chips and kind of munched on those, and headed back out. I thought I still had quite a bit of mileage to get to my crew at Dusty. So in my mind, I had one more aid station before I would see my crew, but in reality, I would see them in 6 miles. So in my mind, it was playing on me that I still had quite a bit of time to see my crew, and my hamstring was getting worse. I was having a hard time running because it just wanted to cramp on me. It kept pulling and tugging. And then I drank some water, and finally everything came out again. It was a very violent, I don't mean to be graphic, but it was very violent throw up. I don't know why, but it was really bad. We'll just put it that way. And with that, my hamstring finally did seize. It cramped, and somebody came by and asked, are you okay? And I said, no. I was still throwing up when they asked. And so I said, let them know number 310 is really struggling. My hamstring is cramped and vomiting. I'm coming. And I didn't realize how close we were, but I was hobbling. And I hobbled down into the aid station, and again, I didn't think my crew was there. I didn't think that was the Dusty Corners aid station, but it was. And when I saw my wife, I almost broke down. I was so relieved to see her, and I told her, I said, I'm in bad shape. I need to lay down. I'm throwing up, and my hamstring's cramping. And this is it's gonna be tough. Oh, it still hurts. So I got into the aid station. And, they were quite attentive. I could see the look of concern on my kids' faces, and that hurts a lot. I don't like them seeing me in rough shape. I don't like them seeing me in pain. And, I was cramping really bad, and my wife was like, you have to relax. You have to lay down. And so I tried to lay down, and as soon as I did, my diaphragm cramped and bent me in half, and I threw up. And I couldn't relax either way. As soon as I tried to lay back, either my hip flexor or my quad or my hamstring would cramp, and then I'd bend up again, and my diaphragm would cramp, and then I'd throw up again. And it was this vicious cycle of just my body cramping and seizing on me and throwing up. It was extremely painful. I laid there for well over an hour, and the volunteers kept coming to check on me and telling me how much time I had left before cutoff. And I knew there wasn't anything I could do. My calves were kind of wriggling; they were like just writhing and ready to cramp. My hamstrings, they were just solid rods and still cramped. And I really didn't have anything left to throw up. We kept trying to get fluids down, but every time we did, I'd throw up. It was, everything we could do. I tried pickle juice. I tried, just plain water, Coke, everything. We tried everything to try to get me back to sorts so that I could get out of that aid station. And, I kept hearing my wife's voice, you have to relax, and I was trying. I really was. I tried everything I could to get back out on course. They finally came over and said, you have 20 minutes left to cut off. I said, well, come back and check on me in 10. I'll see if I can stand up.
And so they did. They came back in with 10 minutes to go. My crew tried to stand me up, but I couldn't straighten my leg. It was cramped. My hamstring was cramped. I couldn't use it. I couldn't walk. I couldn't take a step on it. It was too tender. Like it really, it pulled so hard from the cramping, and it just wasn't working. I couldn't fire it. I couldn't walk. And the volunteer said, "Why don't you try to make it to the next aid station?" And I said, "I can't walk. Where I'm going into the canyons next, you guys are just going to have to come pull me out because I can't walk." So I was a little bit frustrated. And I mean, the volunteer pulled the card. This is Western States, and I said, I understand that, and I'm glad that I have a finish here. I do have the buckle already, but I can't walk. I don't want somebody to have to come retrieve me. I flashed back to 2019 when something similar happened at Cruel Jewel, and we got me back on course. But as soon as we did, I got maybe a mile from the aid station, and both hamstrings seized on me, and I was stuck on the side of the trail and had to call my crew to come retrieve me. I didn't want that same thing to happen. And I mean, the reality was this time was much worse than Cruel Jewel. I couldn't even walk at that point. And it flashed back to Gordy Ansley when he talked in the film Unbreakable. He said, I knew there was one more thing that I could do, and that was take another step. I knew that I couldn't take another step. As frustrating and as disappointing as that was, I came to the realization that my race was over. That's a hard realization, especially for something like Western States. I'm sorry. So the volunteer finally cut my bracelet, and that stung. It's not easy to take a DNF when you work for something so hard. I know all of you know what that's like, and it's magnified when you're on the stage of something like Western States. And because of how important it is to everybody, not only that got in, but didn't get in, we all know what that experience is, what we want, and we know how important, how special that experience is and the opportunity. And, I think the only thing that gives me some peace of mind is the fact that I knew that I couldn't continue. My legs just weren't there for whatever reason that day. And as I said, we've gone through it on all sides. All coaches and all people have kind of analyzed it. And we don't know what went wrong. It could have been the altitude. It could have been hydration was off. Electrolytes were off. It could have been a combination. But for some reason, things were off that day, and I just couldn't get to the finish line, which again, it's obviously disappointing. It obviously stings. It still does. And the problem with it is that even with assessment and analyzation, we don't know why things went the way they did. Or why I couldn't get, my cramping to stop. So, the point being is that sometimes we don't have our day, and that's a tough thing. It's a tough thing for anyone, especially when you can't figure out the reasons why it happened. Because obviously, I don't want it to happen again. So, I'm trying to make peace with it. It's quite difficult when it's something like Western States. It still stings when it's not Western States, obviously, but I don't like wasting opportunities like that. I've had multiple conversations with my athletes, with my friends, and I really have come to peace with the fact that that was my last try at Western States. As much as I don't like leaving it in the state that it was, I really do want to move on. I want to give other people that opportunity to be able to do Western States. I also, I'm tired of qualifying, to be honest, and doing races that, honestly, I don't really have an affinity to do. They're not, something that I truly enjoy. I'm going to be 48 this year. and I know my time is limited with this sport. I'm so happy that I'm still doing it. I think, when I look at a lot of the people that I grew up with running, that have been, people that I look up to in running, they're no longer competing or doing or trying to do the things that, I'm going after. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. That's their, that's their perception and their idea of what's right for them. And there's no judgment there. But I'm not done. Like I have other things that I want to accomplish and everything and things that I want to go after. And the first thing my wife asked was like, do you still want to do Tour de France? And I said, of course. Yes, absolutely. Like Tour de France is something that excites me. Not that Western States did not excite me. I don't want anybody to take that as my message. But Tour de France speaks to me in ways that Western States did not. Like Western States is an amazing event, but I will say that like in the event, when I started getting deeper into the miles, people became more and more serious, and there was less joy in the air, in the environment, because they were so focused and intent on that finish line. And like I get that. That's valid, extremely valid for a race like that. But I want to be around racers that are enjoying it and just experiencing it with the less pressure. Like Western States certainly brings a pressure of like, this is hard. This is, going to take a lot to get to the finish line. Whereas like Tour de France, it's, we're going out for an amazing experience. We have time, there's not that stress. Sure, there's going to be a lot of fatigue in, basically over 200 miles and over 80,000 feet of vertical gain. But at the same time, it's a different experience. It's a different mentality, and that's the mentality that I'm looking for, is the joy of the experience and going with it. And that's what I tried to bring to Western States this year, is the enjoyment. But it is a different event in that regard. And I knew that going in, I did. But again, when I experienced it, it really did detract from my race. I was trying to talk to people, and they were just so focused, and rightly so. But again, that's not the race experience that I'm looking for in an event that I'm training extremely hard for. So with that said, moving forward, I want to find different events that have, that mentality that I'm looking for. So, I'm certainly going to keep moving forward, to keep trying. Tour de France, it's obviously a huge race, and I'm looking forward to that challenge, and putting forth, this effort. Training is extremely different. I'll share that my son Keegan has chosen to go run for the University of Portland out in Oregon, and I'm extremely excited for him. While at the same time, the cost of that education is more than we had anticipated, because it was a very late decision. So with that, I had to just kind of stop the ancillary coaching. I had to stop coaching with Ryan. Would have loved to have continued with him. As I said, I really enjoyed working with him as a coach. But finances be as they are, I just went back to kind of coaching myself. And the reality is, I really enjoy this style of training, spending time in the mountains, climbing, just being out there for time, and hiking. That's, a majority of what I'm going to be doing at Tour de France. So I'm working on my hiking. You'll see on Strava that I've been doing like an hour and a half of hiking on the treadmill and getting in 4,000 feet in a session, and doing 2 sessions a day. So 8,000 feet of climbing in a day. My runs, I'm just trying to get in. And again, a lot of it's just hiking. So the pace is a lot slower, but I'm getting more efficient at climbing, which is what I need for Tour de France. Today, as I speak to you, I'm just going to go for a 2-hour run and enjoy my run without worrying about vertical gain, because I still need that too. And it's finding that balance and striking that balance where I'm not overly focused on one aspect of the training. Sure, I want to get the vertical gain. In the past 2 days, weeks, I'm recording this on Wednesday, I already have over 11,000 feet of gain for the week, which is awesome, but again, I want to strike that balance so that I enjoy my training. So, lots going on, Keegan is off to college in August. That time is quickly approaching. But I look forward to that opportunity for him. Ambron's going to be a freshman in high school, and cross country has already started. So I'm back to coaching with the kids. Really enjoying this kind of fresh blood. We have so many freshmen, which is it's great. I'm so excited to see what these teams can do. So lots going on with everything with the kids. They're fantastic. But yeah, I'm super excited about the Tour de France. We can't wait to go over to Italy and just experience this race. And, I think my biggest thing right now, again, is just staying present in the moment and enjoying every day of running and looking forward to going out for a run. Right now I'm just selecting routes that I'm excited about. Like, I'm like, oh, that's, I'd like to go run there. And that's what I'm up to. In 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks now, I guess a week and a half, I'm doing, double Art Lobe. So I'm going back and forth on Art Lobe, out and back. Doing a yo-yo, and that's something that I didn't finish in my Bigfoot training, due to various reasons, and we can talk about those maybe after I attempt the double Art Lobe again and see how it goes. But again, I'm just doing things that excite me and bring joy to my running, because that's what I want at this point in my life, is to really enjoy every aspect of running, and that includes this podcast. It was a big part of my life, the podcast, and it's brought me in touch with so many cool people, and I want to continue to do that. So, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, don't hesitate to reach out. Listen, I didn't post online on Facebook and Instagram for sympathy. I posted just to make it a recognition that, yeah, stuff goes wrong, sometimes, but we have to keep moving forward. Sometimes things don't go to plan, and that's hard. But the reality is, we can share these, and that's the reality. I mean, it's a lot of times we see the positives on Facebook, but as I said earlier, I want to be honest. Like, not everything is it doesn't go as you want, and that's life, right? And so we take these things, and it's sometimes it can be a tough pill to swallow, but we can be better people from it if we take away the lessons that we've gained and try to apply them moving forward. So I hope you'll keep moving forward with me. As I said, I'm going to do my best to keep this podcast rolling, to do something each week and talk about them. Perhaps next week we do that shoe episode. Listen to a podcast recently about training, so I got a few thoughts on that. So, there's a lot of topics that I want to cover and talk about. But again, I want to hear from you and hear about what's relevant to you. What questions do you have? Because that's what's important to me, is to put out information, try to put out the most valid information that I can, so that we all learn from this and can be better runners for it and better people. So, thank you again for joining me, for your time and listening to this. I hope you can get some takeaways, some lessons from my experience. To update you guys, my hamstring's doing much better. I went and saw my physical therapist, Miriam, and she did some dry needling on that hamstring, and it loosened up finally. It still was a little bit problematic on my first long run back, and then I went and saw Miriam, and since my hamstring has been just fine. So I'm relieved about that. Again, it's just trying to figure out things for Tour de France. The gear choices are going to be interesting. A lot of selection there, a lot of experimenting right now. Again, a whole nother episode I could put into, the stuff that I'm trying out for Tour de France. So lots to talk about, my friends. And if you have suggestions, I'd love to hear them. If you have connections with people that have done Tour de Jance, I interviewed Will quite some time ago about Tour de Jance. Quite a few people have been on this podcast that have done Tour de Jance, which is so cool because I can reach out to them as resources, and I have. It's great to have such a great community. I hope we continue to learn from each other and share with one another. But until next time, my friends, keep moving forward. Running is life.